Good afternoon. Thank y'all for joining today. We'll let people kind of trickle in for the next couple minutes as we just kicked off. But thank you for joining today. Presentation today is why identity security fails at scale. If you haven't met me yet, my name is David Haynes. I'm the Information Security Officer at Augmentt, and I spend a lot of my time talking with MSPs around strategies for compliance and controls, then also helping them scale that effectively. And then, but also through that process, I see many opportunities where efficiencies are being wasted and errors are being made. We thought that it would be a good opportunity to highlight some of those things and then provide some suggestions for how to fix that. Because as business owners, growing is a great problem to have, but we've seen the conversations often gone, well, we've hired 3 more staff, we've signed up 30 more businesses, but our profit margin's still the same. We've not made any more money. That's the problem with the scaling with identity. So we'll give people another 30 seconds here or a minute. If you have any questions, this is our first time using BrightTalk. There is a questions tab in the right-hand side with the in the panel. Please feel free to drop them there. We'll try to get them as quickly as possible throughout the presentation. Feel free to interrupt. I'm not upset by that. Without further ado, jump into it. So again, my name is David Haynes, the Information Security Officer. And so again, quick overview. I'm sure we can all appreciate how Entra doesn't make the MSP's life easier when it comes to managing your customers, jumping in and out of portals, trying to find different pages, different login flows to do the simple day-to-day tasks is where your team slows down. And with that slowdown, it makes scaling a lot harder. And with that, it reduces the profitability of scaling, why everyone wants to continue to grow their business. Fragmentation across your customers. We see this time and time again where you'll have completely different configurations across your customer base. And that again slows things down because you're always constantly having to reference your IT glue documentation or your specific customer documentation for how they are supposed to handle things. So standardization should be there. And then the last big one, especially if you or your customers are going for any compliance efforts, CMMC is going to be a big one for a lot of MSPs that we work with as their customers work with the U.S. government, but also HIPAA if they're going for SOC 2, ISO, anything like that. Auditing at scale should be easy, shouldn't be a chore. So like I mentioned, growth doesn't mean profit. My wife and I, outside of working for Augmentt, we run a physiotherapy clinic. And we've had to deal with the issue of, okay, we've hired 2 more staff that should grow revenue. And it does grow revenue, but it comes with that extra cost. And we don't see that. We didn't see that immediate boost to profitability that we were expecting until we made some adjustments within the scheduling and the team. When it comes to for MSPs, finding ways to optimize and standardize across your customer base and automate what you can and set up self-service options where you can, that's where you're going to see the benefit of scaling, where the cost of goods sold or cost of your service needs to come down to improve efficiency so you can actually get the benefit of increasing the workload from that boost in customers. If I were to ask everyone right now how many tabs you have open and how many windows, you probably have double digits, triple digits sometimes across all your different browser windows. Fragmentation, friction, we've all dealt with it, jumping in and out of customer portals as tickets come in. Hey, can you reset the password for this user in customer 1? I need an MFA reset in customer 2. I need a conditional access policy changed for an exclusion because someone's traveling for work. Can you go do that? Jumping in and out of all those portals. Microsoft doesn't make that easy. One of the areas that they've tried to make improvements on is with the partner center and setting up GDAP and jumping through using that portal flow into it. And that's the partner center is a double-edged sword. It has the potential to be really good, but it often falls flat on its feet, and people stop using it and fall back to the traditional path of shared user accounts in the different environments, or struggling with the partner center, and that's slowing your team down. We'll get into it in a few moments here, but what we really want to do is work on optimizing like the workflow, because every time your tech touches something, it's going to reduce the profit margin that you have, and also then slow you down. To put it in perspective, like a quick exercise that you can do is, if let's say it takes 5 minutes to resolve a simple password reset ticket, from reading the ticket, jumping into the environment, resetting the password, and closing the ticket, say 2-3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. If you're paying your tech $25 an hour, that's 40 cents a minute, that's $2.08. How many times they're going to do that a year or an hour? If they can only able to do 12 of those kind of low-level ticket tasks in an hour, then that's not a profitable option for you, and you're not able to scale that efficiently. If they're able to do more than that, that's great. That's very efficient. And that's what you want. You want to be able to see how often are these low-level identity management tasks that your team is doing, and break that down into costs per action, to then identify, okay, what is the most pressing thing for us as a business to be able to grow and scale successfully? Well, these MFA resets, password resets, conditional access policy changes, not even deployments, but just creating those exceptions, so that way the sales team can go travel to Europe for a trade event for a brief period. If you can only do 12 of those an hour, then it's not a scalable, profitable option for you. You need to find ways to improve that efficiency. So I highly encourage you to take an assessment of all the tickets that your team does in a month. Kind of break that down into how long does an average one take to address, and then see where your time sink is and where you're able to identify any the real root cause of what's slowing you down for efficiency and scaling on identity management. And I'd be willing to bet it's these context switching, jumping in and out of customer portals, and the issues of just portal management and tab hell, as it's called. So the big ways to improve that, obviously, everyone says that they have baselines, they have standard operating procedures, they have standards across their customer, but how stringently are there? Every customer is going to have some customization to them. Where I've seen the most success within the MSP space is they've divided their customers very cleanly in between business standard and business premium customers. So that way there's less confusion among the licensing. Sometimes we've seen people only do business premium licensing. That allows you to build very standardized formats for what each tenant is going to look like, from everything from groups to conditional access policies, defender policies. Then you can have a separate baseline for your business standards if you can't get people up to that licensing. It is a hard conversation to have with customers, but the advantage there is that you can actually set a standard for what these customers are going to look like in terms of the user formats, the groups, the settings within those Microsoft environments, and have that as a standard across your base. The big one obviously is enabling self-service password reset or self-service MFA resets. That way you can take that task off your team's plate and allow your customer, one, it's faster for the end user, and two, your team that has valuable time is able to work on more profitable or problem-driven issues. And then again, the big advantage is, as the last point says, human error over time is a certainty, not a probability. So finding a way to automate those configurations or standardizing them programmatically, again, is going to come in and help prevent those issues of, oh, did I forget to include that group on that conditional access policy, which then caused MFA not to be enforced? Or did I include or exclude the named locations properly, so that way the people couldn't get access outside of the country? And did I set that user exclusion for the travel properly? Having automation and a tool to audit that is going to help a lot with your efficiency on that front, to then free up your team's time to do more valuable work for your business. Where identity management and scale, I think, both fails at scale, not so much from like the profit-driven, like time sink issue. It's the vulnerability that it opens up within your customer's environment, and even within the MSP environment. It's those orphan accounts, those ghost accounts that haven't been logged into forever, that were still there. Maybe a customer of yours let someone go but didn't tell you to deactivate that account, and you ask them, hey, why is Dennis still he hasn't logged in 60, 90, 120 days? What's his status? Oh, we let him go. So he had that account just floating out there, unused service accounts, unused applications, things like that take time to audit, do create a risk for your customers. But then again, that's hard to do at scale. It's handling it for 5 customers, not too bad. You can kind of keep that all in your head. Oh, I need to check in with them to make sure that the user count's still valid. As soon as you get to 10, 50, 100, and your team grows, it's much harder to keep that together. Shadow IT, we've all heard that term to death now, especially with the advent, like with the push of all of these AI tools and the data that these AI tools are desperate to pull, both from Entra environments, from local machines, and the information that end users are putting in there individually, and the fragmented nature of that. Like here internally at Augmentt, the sales team uses one AI platform, the engineering team uses a different one, marketing uses a mix of things. So keeping track of that and what those tools have access to, as these applications get hooked into Entra or CRM platforms, can cause a lot of issues, especially as these agents are now able to talk back and make actions. And then the other one on the Shadow IT thing is looking at all the different Entra applications in your customer's environment and seeing what's there, what's still being used, what permissions did those have. Yes, when you go through like an audit with Augmentt, you're able to change the user consent and permission settings to lock what users can moving forwards go into. But going through that audit process at scale of what apps are still in there, and I'm sure some of you would be surprised at just the quantity of applications that you will see in your customer's environment that were added 6 months before you signed up with them, a year, 2 years, 5 years. From my experience working with MSPs, some do a fantastic job of cleaning that out and staying on top of it. But it's often a part that gets easily forgotten, kind of like the very back of your refrigerator, where you know that something spilled 6 months ago, and you're like, I'll do that when I clean the fridge out. Something just to stay on top of. The two areas where I think that MSPs struggle on the identity management at scale would be the last one, like that permission creep of, hey, I'm a good tech, I know what I'm doing, I need to go into a customer's environment to change Defender policies or Intune or conditional access. Can I just get a global admin account or access? That's great for efficiency. You guys are really trying to, again, like the first problem that we talked about is, how do we make it so your team can do their job faster so they can do more of it? The problem is with that is that if that technician's account gets breached, all of a sudden it's global admin into your customer's environment or multiple customers' environments, depending on how you have your identity management structured. The way Microsoft intends for the MSP to gain access to their customer's environment is that Microsoft really doesn't want MSPs to have a individual global admin account or even just regular admin accounts in the customer's environment. They want it all purely managed through that GDAP relationship. So, and then tied into security groups. We did a full hour webinar on the way Microsoft expects GDAP to be set up. Highly recommend you check that out in our webinar library. If you have any questions on that as well, happy to either answer that, or we can do a one-on-one session with your team. But the intention there is that your MSP's internal security controls gate access to your customer's environment, protecting your customers as well as protecting your team. But time and time again, we see people, because it's just easier and more efficient, leaning on that shared user account that multiple people have access to get in to do the job that they need to in those environments. So having that conversation of what is it that we actually need to do the job that we're contracted to do, and how can we scale that back, is a conversation that I think gets neglected in terms to kind of fight back that tide of efficiency and trying to get the job done that you're hired to do. So that, again, ties back into margin erosion. As you scale up and bring on more customers, the manual process makes sense to begin with. These are all just estimates, not like fixed numbers, but let's say user onboarding takes 10 to 30 minutes. Setting up a proper scaled automation flow cuts that down to 2 to 10 minutes. MFA password resets, you can set that up to be 5 to 15 minutes manual, push that to self-service. And then doing compliance audits for who has access to what and what their permissions are and MFA settings are. If you're doing that manually for individual tenants, that can take an hour or more, depending on the size of the tenant. If you have a platform or a tool or dashboard that you can reference on, bring that down to 1 to 5 minutes. And again, that's going to become more important, I think, for the MSP space as more customers are being made aware of different compliance requirements they're going to have to adhere to, like CMMC, as well, like the safe harbor laws. If you can demonstrate that you're adhering to NIST 500 or 800-71, I think it is, or 173, that's a legal defense should there ever be a breach that your customer is responsible for. So that's going to become more and more part of the conversation for MSPs with their customers of, we need to bring you up to these baselines, because with AI attacks, it's going to be way more easy you're way more vulnerable to a breach than ever before, because it's just become so much easier, and with that AI automation, to breach customer enter environments. So being able to demonstrate that we are doing our job properly and holding you to a compliance standard is going to become more important for your business team to position on. But then also from your operation side of things, how do you actually do it efficiently? If you had to give if you have 50 customers and you're spending 50 hours pulling compliance audits, that's inefficient, and you're never going to be able to get that back in your margins, or be challenging to. And so, yeah, if you aren't increasing your profit margins while growing your customer base, then you aren't really growing as a business. You're just staying the same, despite the one number going up. Like I mentioned, that role creep trap. How many, kind of a question to the field, how many what's the most global admins that you've seen in an enter environment? Like in our test environment, we have probably 85 global admins. So that's just because it's a test junk environment. But I've seen MSPs with a dozen global admins, or customers of MSPs where they've set up each of their techs as a global admin. That's a very cumbersome, complicated way of managing their own internal access controls. So what is the recommendation from Microsoft or NIST on how many global admins should an enter environment have? It's 2 to 5. And obviously the smaller the number, the better. That control then comes back into, are you actually leveraging GDAP permissions properly and the partner center properly? As an MSP, to gain access to those customers' environments, are you managing privileged identity management properly if you're running a business premium license or an E5 or E3 license? And are you using just-in-time access and GDAP properly? On that, one of the things that I think escapes MSPs, so you've onboarded a new customer, you've seen, old MSP that we got these guys from, they had an old user account. You go in, deactivate that user account. that's it. Obviously, first step. Have you checked the partner relationships in your customer's environment to see who else still has access? Is there any old GDAP relationships still floating around in there? One of the things that I've seen time and time again, and I haven't got a great answer yet from distributors, is I think PAX 8 for their GDAP relationship for license management defaults to a global admin relationship. So PAX 8 has global admin access to all of their customers. I'm not sure exactly why they need that. So if anybody has that information and can share it with me, I'd appreciate that. But go and check to see in your customer's environment who has access, but then also try to imagine how we're going to do this at scale and consistently across the board. Something to check and monitor on and stay on top of. Again, it comes down to that's a big time suck project cutting into the margins that you're able to get as you bring on more customers. So again, where we see like MSPs breaking the rules, that shared global admin account or multiple global admin accounts into each customer's environment. Again, Microsoft wants you to move away from that and use the GDAP and Partner Center or tools like Augmentt or SIP or other ones out there that allow you to delegate that access out into a least privilege access platform. That multiple user account, again, it becomes hard to manage, especially as techs change positions, even within your company. All right, they're going from level 2 tech where they are in the trenches doing the work, and then they become a tech lead, and they're managing a team of techs. They're not doing that work anymore. You now have to go into 50 tenants and deactivate that account. Or maybe they've left and you have to go into deactivate that account. Again, it's just a time-consuming process. I believe that Microsoft does provide within the Partner Center a package on either free or discounted E3 licenses for MSPs. I think there's up to 30 in the package that you can get. If you have E3 licenses and you're not leveraging PIM, again, we did a webinar on it last year. Highly recommend checking that out to see how you can actually leverage PIM to make your environment more secure and in turn protect your environment, because attackers, they're not just coming after your customers. If they can breach your environment, they can get access to all of your customers through GDAP if you've set it up in a way that doesn't take those security precautions in turn. So then again, yeah, having that GDAP set up but not using it. I've been on calls many times of saying, hey, can we jump into a customer's environment to try to see why things are looking funny on our end? And the person I'm on the call with says, yeah, no problem. And he'll just log in using their local global admin. And it's just a habit that they've built over years. And really that habit of switching into that Partner Center is where you want to go to for being able to do it efficiently at scale, but also do it efficiently at scale securely is the big component there. So what's the solution? How do we actually put this all together? Unfortunately, a big component of it is you just have to sit down and think and figure out what you want to do and switch from the admin to the architect. So one, a centralized visibility into all of your tenants, like to identify, to make sure that they are all up to the same standard that you want them to be. Streamlined workflows for repetitive tasks, for onboarding, offboarding, password resets. If they have a self-service option for that, enable it with an enter for like self-service password reset. And then the big one, it's kind of in there, number 3, standardize your enter system under management. Have consistent group structure for everybody. Have consistent, if you can, standardize the minimum license you deploy. The most organized MSPs that I've had the chance to talk with and work from and learn from have said, yeah, we only do like business premium licenses because of the security advantages and controls and the security that it provides them as an MSP to be able to lift them up to a standard that they are happy with. Obviously, that's not going to be a fit for everybody, but within that, if you have a business standard group and then a business premium group, establish what those baselines look like and align those with a compliance baseline. Again, if you're in the States, if you can follow NIST 800-71 compliance and be able to demonstrate that, that is protection within those safe harbor laws, depending on how they apply in the state that you're in. But also it's going to become more important as people chase those new compliance measures that they need to do that. Continuous compliance, again, drift detection, because Microsoft doesn't want you to have that global admin account in your customer's environment. Their thinking is, well, it's your customer's assets is that Entra instance. It's not the MSP's asset. The customer should have a global admin account, or even just other admin accounts. Maybe they have internal IT that you can co-manage stuff with. Being able to detect when drift happens from those postures is another really important thing moving forwards, to streamline those automations. So that way, and those audits, being told, oh, they've added a new user that wasn't included in that MFA group, I'm going to go do that now, versus 3 months down the line doing that audit and realizing, oh, we've missed this user, they don't have MFA enforced for the last 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is. And then if you aren't able to do a full audit report for where your customer sits for role assignment, MFA configuration, conditional access, like location blocking, device compliance, if you can't do that within the minutes that you can count on a hand, then I would say that's going to be a big barrier for you to be able to scale efficiently. I think that if you're able to do that auditing process in 10 minutes or less per customer, then you've already done the work above everything to get to that point. So that's a good kind of like finish line to aim for. Coming up to the end of the 30 minutes. Does anybody have any questions on that? Again, we did do webinars on GDAP and PIM, and we're likely to repeat that in the coming months. If anybody would like to voice interest in that, please let me know. If there's any questions, you can drop them in the chat. Not seeing anything. All right. Thank you all for coming out. I hope that there was some valuable information in there, some little nuggets that may have been useful to take away. And yeah, if you have any questions that you wanted to carry on as a separate conversation, or have a conversation about how to execute this in your own environment, feel free to reach out to our team, and I'm happy to have a call, even outside of talking about Augmentt, just like the configuration within CSP. Yeah, absolutely. We can get you that link. One moment. Here it is. It's augmentt.com/webinars, and you'll see the GDAP link there, as well as we did a full series on Intune playbooks and a bunch of other topics. And there's also some new webinars coming up, so feel free to jump in there and check that out. If there's no further questions, again, thank you all for attending. And yeah, my email is david@davidhaynes.io, or you can just reach out to support, and they're happy to connect us. Thank you very much.